Boss Rush Video Game Book Club is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our family of podcasts, head on over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia to see which tier is right for you. Thanks for your continued support. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Boss Rush Video Game Book Club, the place where you can hear all about your favorite video games as we spoil them. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Derrigan, alongside me for this part 3 and finale of the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Video Game Book Club is the mad pharmacist herself, Stephanie Klimov.
Dragons are awesome.
These dragons were awesome. Stephanie, you're wearing a very fancy shirt tonight.
Really? It's actually a dress, but thank you.
Well, I can't see.
Nana.
I can't see from like here down.
I know. I'm just explaining to the audience. This was not to get all sentimental, but this was my Nana's dress, and it got passed down to me. It's very simple, but also very comfortable. And I miss my Nana. Love you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sad feelings. Anyways, speaking of sad feelings, PK Power, Pat Klein is here.
What?
Hi. I don't know how to respond to this.
It's been a long week, dude. I'm sorry. It's the only thing I can come up with in the moment. Oh man, everybody. So everyone's done with Zelda, right? Everybody's packed it away, put it in the box, put it on their shelf.
Yeah, you know what? Like, I'm not even close to... Oh, well, first of all, I'm never going to 100% this because I'm not doing the Korok thing. But I haven't really done a lot of extras. I did get the guidebook, but I crammed a lot of Zelda in one time period where I spread Breath of the Wild out. So I'm almost kind of, I wouldn't say sick of Tears of the Kingdom already, but you know, you get kind of burnt out on a game if you put too much into it. So I'm putting it away. When there's a winter lull, hopefully there's a winter lull, I will then pick up and kind of complete the side quests.
Well, I don't know if you saw the Nintendo release calendar alone, but not sure.
Yeah, there's a couple Marios coming out, and you know.
Gosh, by the way, I'm really I'm really excited to be done with Zelda and I'm really excited for my PlayStation to not be broken so I can play Final Fantasy. Because I'm really excited for that. But we're not here for that. Next month we'll be here for that. We'll be I guess spoiler alert, our next video game book club is Final Fantasy 16. And I think moving forward we're only going to do like maybe one episode per game, because just based on like the Hogwarts Legacy one, like the first episode did really well and the second episode didn't do well, and then like from well, I don't know the second Tears of the Kingdom stuff yet, but the first one did pretty well, and I guess we'll judge by the time the second one comes out. For everybody, comes out on this coming Sunday. Patrons get this episode a month early, so keep that in mind. For just $1, you get this and more.
But really. Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is next, and you know what? Especially if you're on Patreon, we would love to kind of get some feedback for you guys on other potential book club games for the remainder of the year. Start it out there.
Yeah, we're gonna start taking requests on Patreon, so you can head over there and look for the poll or the post, the Patreon post for book club games, and you can vote or make suggestions, and we'll be doing that.
I mean, as you can imagine, this is a year of games. There's endless possibilities.
A year of games.
So get out there, get on those polls, and tell us why we should do Pikmin 4 after Final Fantasy.
Man, Pikmin 4. I haven't even started that. I want to play that Disney game that came out today too.
We will spoil the crap out of Pikmin 4 and its almost non-existent story.
What do you mean? You crash land in someone's backyard and you find these plant people and you rebuild a rocket ship and then you take off.
Well, there you go. We just had a Pikmin 4.
But there's your 30-second book club on Pikmin 4.
Bonus!
Bam!
This is why you got to stick around for part 3 of Zelda to get a bonus of another game.
I know. Also, Disney Dreamlight Valley news, guys. New update for that. I'm just kidding. I'm not
No,
kidding. There is a new update, and I have been playing it a little bit, but we're not here to talk about that.
if you do
Uh,
want to talk about news updates, though, Final Fantasy 14 is getting its 5th expansion pack next year.
and it's coming to Xbox. Woo!
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
So
I'm
this is
excited.
big, especially because the actual Final Fantasy 14 story finished with Endwalker. So this is a brand new story that they're going to tell.
What it's called? What Trailblazer or something?
Uh, Dawn,
Dawn
Dawn
Trailer,
Trail,
Dawn Trail,
Dawn Trail.
whatever. Trailblazer, Blaze Trail. Who knows?
It's going to take place. It's going to be the theme is like summer vacation, so it's going to take place on like a tropical island.
Mm.
That is cool.
Isn't there
Mm-hmm.
pirates? I saw somebody floating around pirates today.
There's lizard people.
Yeah, that's not
Huh?
pirates. Whatever.
I
All right.
mean, they
Anyways,
haven't.
speaking
Yeah,
speaking
they're
of
good
lizard people,
princess. Sorry.
people are here to hear about Zelda. Okay, enough of this Final Fantasy talk. Enough Pikmin. Enough Disney Dreamlight Valley.
We're going to talk about Zelda, and in my perspective, I know everybody's different. In my perspective, my favorite part of the Zelda game. I know Zelda generally isn't very just story heavy. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Skyward Sword is, but that's not my favorite game. I know people went wild and crazy, wet and wild for all the Ultra Hand building stuff, but for me, I was here for the Dragon's Tears.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess we should talk about what we're covering here today on this one. If you missed the first two, I recommend going back and listening to those. The first one we kind of talked about the opening and some of the story elements that happened in the first, chunk of the game. The second one we took a deep dive into um the dungeons and the sages, and now we're talking about the Dragon's Tears, the ending, some of our favorite side quests, and then our overall thoughts on the game. So, uh, yeah, so we want to start with the Dragon's Tears, right? I thought about maybe starting with the ending, which ending awesome, by the way.
Mhm,
That,
mhm.
that battle was way better than the Breath of the Wild's
Yes.
ending. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. But we're gonna go through the Dragon Tier memories and kind of talk about how they progressed the story. And I love the story. Love the story. I was like in Breath of the Wild, like I kind of like didn't care, and in this one, I'm like, this story is amazing.
Well, here's the thing, and you let me know, especially Pat as well. In Breath of the Wild, the memories seem almost more like character vignettes. We
Hmm.
got to meet the champions, a little snippet in time. I mean, there is the generalized growth from Zelda hating you to, I don't know, liking you, putting up with you, whatever. Here, the Dragon's Tear story beats are actually like a progressive beginning, middle, end, so to speak, story, which it leads to my question for you guys before we actually talk about the stories themselves is, did you seek them out in order? Which
No.
probably not. And if you didn't, did you feel that because there was a very progressive story, do you feel like getting them in different orders kind of spoiled or ruined things for you?
I don't feel like it necessarily spoiled too much for me. Like, obviously, I kind of had a hint what was going to happen to Zelda
Hmm.
pretty fast when I saw one of those memories, like, early on.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But overall, like, I didn't really have much of a problem taking the story in not in chronological order. It was pretty easy to piece where each one kind of fell on the timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the same way. I kind of found the Zelda Dragon one pretty early. I think it was like my third Dragon's tier actually. Because like I was like looking them like I was looking at a map just to kind of like because I knew we were going over this and I wanted to my whole thing was like I want to do all the story things so that when I'm done I can just go run around and find the shrines and the Koroks and the light things in the depths and be just putz around in the world, right? That's what I want to do. I wanted to get the story stuff done so I could go do that. Um but I did find that one pretty early. And it was kind of like meh. I kind of wish I didn't find I wish that one kind of would have come last. So that one was kind of a bummer, but the rest of them like okay, you kind of know what happens to Raru already. You kind of know what's going to happen to Sonya.
Hmm.
Minoru, you kind of assume certain things, and like the I like how they kind of told the story like that, and you could kind of piece it together. The only one that was really kind of like spoilery and kind of not ruined it, but like was kind of upsetting that I found it early on was the Zelda dragon one. Uh, and then that actually, like after I got that one, I actually went and got the Master Sword. And so when
Mm,
I got to the Great Deku Tree, I already like because he's
mm,
supposed to tell you where the
yeah.
Master Sword is, and
Hmm.
like I already found it, so I didn't really get the full experience for that either.
Yep, that happened to me too.
Yeah.
I think that was the problem with like the later half of the game once you got through all the phenomenon is that it doesn't really explain well enough the order you're supposed to go afterwards.
Hmm.
Mm,
And I think every single one of us suffered the consequence of that by not getting those last memories in order.
Hmm.
We knew what the where the sword was.
Yeah. I almost wish like they would have given you the memories in order, regardless of
mm,
which dragon tiers you found first, right? Like,
Hmm.
like, oh, I could have found the one, in the upper left hand corner or the one in the spiral, whatever. Well, I guess that one was kind of what
the
last,
last
I
Yeah.
one.
guess. Yeah.
No,
But like,
I get what you mean.
yeah.
I mean, granted, I know that the glyphs were kind of almost like a shape
Hmm.
of what the memory represented. But again, like I feel like Nintendo could have done something like that. And that's what I mean by comparing it to Breath of the Wild, where I'm pretty sure that you could get any memory in literally any order and it would make zero difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hmm.
kind of actually rewatched the Breath of the Wild memories about a week ago. And I was like, because I was almost done finding the Dragon Tears ones, and there's a pretty clear order to the Dragon Tier memories and the other memories from the game. And I was watching the Breath of the Wild one. I'm like, these are just kind of like you really can watch these in any order and like
Yeah, and
get
then the
what you
ones
need.
that they were at the end were, those were you got them at the end. So
Hmm.
that showed like Link's fate and, Ganon coming out of the castle and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, should we go over them? The
Ye-
memories.
yeah. Do you want to start it, Stephanie, or do you want me to kick it off? Or
Yeah, I can give it a start. I mean, if you retrieve every single memory that is in your log, there will be other memories or clips that are sprinkled in between the dragons tier specifically. So technically, the first two memories are not dragons tiers. The first was when Link and Zelda, I believe, I think it was Link and Zelda recover the
mhm.
Master Sword from the previous from the due to the previous game to restore its power. And there, the Deku Tree reveals that the Master Sword will become even stronger when flooded with sacred power, which comes into play later.
Mhm.
And then the second memory is
Yeah, I
from the beginning of the game is
I
the
kind
awakening,
of like
right?
Mhm.
right.
Right.
Sorry,
So
you
did I cut out?
a little
Yeah.
bit, but
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
started talking and then you cut out, and I was like, "Oh, she said something. I
All
should
right,
stop."
sorry. But okay, so here we'll
Um,
start with tier number
yeah,
one
I kind
titled
of like
Where Am
the.
I?
I feel like,
So
man, I
after you begin, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go
wouldn't be a
ahead.
podcast.
I didn't crash yet.
I'm
Go
trying
ahead.
to. You're
Go
trying
ahead.
to.
Go.
No, what I was saying was, I feel like the Deku Tree, like just overall in Zelda fiction or lore or whatever, like it's so important, but like it's important that you do the Deku Tree stuff first, even in Ocarina of Time, right? Like that's literally the first thing you do is the Deku Tree. And so I wish I would have found him first. And I know like it was kind of like not really obscure of how you got there, because like you could just go in the depths and you got there eventually, but like I really wish I would have found that one first, because that would have set everything up to like, oh, dragons, we gotta do things with the dragons, and then like then the story would have unfolded right? In the way that it was kind of, oh, well, if you do the swallow the the tear, then you become a dragon and lose everything. And then like you could kind of like piece the story together, and then you could kind of maybe make your own guesses about what was going to happen later. Like, is that how, you know, you could have made some guesses that maybe they would have been wrong, maybe they would have been right. But like, Rauru, maybe that's how Rauru sacrificed himself, or maybe, or, then you get to the Zelda cutscene, you're like, oh, she's been here this whole time and she's protecting the Master Sword. And that's, I just wish that I would have unlocked that one first.
Um, well, I don't quite share the same sentiment of having the Deku tree be the first like memory that you find, just because like I feel like that really would like already give you all the information you needed to know
Hmm.
uh about the backstory of what's going on. So all the moments where Zelda kept appearing in the present would, I mean, make it pretty meaningless. I feel like you
True.
would instantly know, yeah, it's not Zelda, or you know that Zelda is the flying dragon
Right.
that's wandering around.
With regard to, yeah, the Master Sword's power and the Deku Tree, I've not, I wouldn't say I avoided the Deku Tree, but I kind of waited till later on in my gameplay just because I'm like, all right, well, the last game I needed a certain amount of hearts to get the Master Sword. There must be like something where I need a bunch of stuff, so I'll go to the Deku Tree later. Um, and with regard to the actual memory itself of where am I, like that's when I was like, "Aha, time travel." I knew it because she woke up, it looked just like Hyrule, and there you see, Rauru and Sonia, which what do you guys think of? I know we're more familiar with Rauru from like like the gameplay, but this would be, if we're talking about chronological order of memories, the first time
Hmm.
we see Sonia, what do you guys think of her as a character? Because I was very excited for a new character. She's got a beautiful design. Everyone kind of like freaked out when they saw her in the trailer, wondering who she is.
Hmm.
But as we'll discuss later, as much as I think she's a good character, I almost feel like she's kind of very, very two dimensional. I don't think
Hmm.
we got to see a lot of her as much as I'd like to see her.
Yeah, I kind of felt like she was more of like she's there definitely for like a story beat instead of actually being a real character, right? And
Mhm.
I feel like you could have almost like, and I know like her sacrifice or her dying is like a big story point, right? But like before that, there's nothing really to her really until like maybe the very end, and even then it's like, well, they're just connecting with Link, right, to uh do the magic or whatever, right? So I was excited because I feel like because like if, am I knowing this right? Like Zelda is like a descendant of theirs, right?
Yep.
Technically.
Well, so that's another point I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if that was in tier 1 or tier 2. I think it might have been tier 2, which is, I don't think it's very terribly a big story beat. Tier 2 is unfamiliar world. Zelda is still with Sonia and Rauru. She realized she traveled to the past, and Rauru recommends speaking with his sister Minoru.
Hmm.
But my question is, and I know we've kind of like already spoiled the later tiers, but okay, Rauru, Sonia. It makes sense because Rauru has light power,
Hmm.
and she has time power, and we'll find out Zelda kind of has both. But like, do they have babies? Because we know one of them didn't make it to the end of the game.
I mean, they must already, right? I mean, they must have some sort of descendant already, like some sort of child that you don't see, right?
Throughout the entire set of
Hmm.
memories, though?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a,
Child
it's a
wasn't
big
important.
it's a plot hole for sure, but like I think you just have to assume if she's a descendant of theirs, you have to assume that there is a baby somewhere, right? I mean, it kind of it kind of sucks that you don't see that and it doesn't explain it fully, but like, you know, she clearly kind of Zelda kind of looks like Sonya a little
Raru.
bit,
Yeah.
and like it's definitely interesting to think about. So is she like part goat person now too? Like,
That's why I kind of would be curious to see what the first baby would look like. And I'm
Yeah.
saying this speaking as a halvesy. Now, granted, I had like two humans, but I'm just saying, like, man, person must have looked way
That
more Zonai in features.
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be I mean, uh,
You know
you
what?
gotta
And
wonder how it's biologically possible, but
thank you. I'm not trying to make it a dirty
hmm
podcast, but I'm just like birds and the bees. How does it work in this situation?
Mm,
But
yeah.
that's okay.
Hmm.
Love is love.
Yeah. I mean, in Final Fantasy 14, you can take a rabbit lady as your wife if you're like, even if you're like one of the little tiny
Oh,
people. So, you know,
I was gonna say at least the rabbit lady is like 95% lady, but
is she
then you
though?
throw
Because definitely has like the nose and the ears and the. I mean, I guess from like the neck to the knees,
the
definitely
parts
is
the
some
parts
sort of
that
lady
count
parts
for the
going on, but.
reproduction.
oh boy.
Oh man, coming to Xbox in the spring, guys. You can be your own sexy lady rabbit person.
Anyway, tier number 3, we meet Minoru, which, by the way, I was super sad that for a game that focused on the Zonai, there's only two Zonai, and that is Rauru and Minoru. I love Minoru. She is such a
Mhm,
cool character. She they kind of paint her as a very bookish, knowledgeable, scientific, so to speak, Zonai. She's in her study. They all talk to see, is there a way to get Zelda back to her own time?
mhm,
And I don't know, kind of hitting it right on the nose here, but Mineru's like, I don't know. I mean, there might be this one way, but it's forbidden.
mhm,
But it's a way,
Mhm.
but it's forbidden. It's called draconification.
mhm,
By swallowing a secret stone, which you'll hear secret stone many, many times throughout this game,
love them secret stones.
you will live forever. With a caveat is you'll become a former shell of yourself in a massive yet glorious dragon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Minoru is definitely like one of the. I mean, Minoru is probably the coolest character in the entire game, in my opinion, in terms of like besides like Zelda and Link, like Minoru is like the top tier character in this game. I love Minoru. She's cool. I wish they would have kind of like really focused more on her and like yeah, Raru is interesting and Sonya, right? But like I think the game might have benefited for like Minoru kind of being that like almost like a Midna type character or a Navi type character and like kind of popping in and out, like giving you story beats or like being more a part of Link's journey, traveling from the past,
Mhm.
in like that ghost form almost.
Well, we might as well kind of state that now. She is later revealed in the game as the Sage of Spirit,
Hmm.
which makes sense because I believe in one of the tiers, Minoru says that her special power is that she can separate her spirit or her soul from her body. What do you think
Hmm.
about that's kind of like an interesting power. Like, I don't know what I would do if I had that power. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll go haunt someone and like possess a speaker or something. But she's a stage of spirit, and she actually joins you in the body of a construct. Not my
Before she
favorite.
does that, though, she puts her soul into Zelda's Zonai, the
Pad.
thank you, Parapad. So technically, she's always been with Link, and Link just doesn't understand her because he's not focused.
Yeah,
Is that
But
why? Okay.
but yeah, I mean,
mhm.
I think it would have been like way cooler if she was way more part of the experience.
Guiding.
I guess.
Hey, listen.
I mean, we could do without that, right? I
Well, hey, listen. Tier number 4 is where, again, chronologically, we see Ganondorf, hydrated Ganondorf, for the first time, titled the Gerudo Assault, where he is with some Gerudo, frightening looking, angry looking Gerudo, and they send a swarm of Moldugo to attack. But the Moldugo is fought off by Raru, Sonya, and Zelda with these massive light power explodey things. And that's when Ganondorf goes, strength alone or brute force alone isn't going to work. And he notices their powers and he gets that creepy little smile, and
Hmm.
the wheels in Ganondorf's head are turning.
And for Secret
Yeah.
Stones, they've really revealed themselves like right then and there.
And not so
Yeah.
secret.
Yeah. Not very secret. They should have called them the Sacred Stones. Would
Or
have been a
just,
much.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Or
know.
teardrops. Just call them freaking teardrops.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
guess
don't
then
know.
there'd be too many tear allegories.
Yeah.
Mm. I found it interesting that the following tier, because it's a show of fealty. So it came right after the Gerudo assault. So he's like, well, I guess trying to send the Moldugas after him won't work. I'm just gonna pledge my allegiance. So the next memory is it's so, it reminded me of Ocarina of Time so hard, where he's walking
Hmm.
down the aisle and he kneels down in the most insincere pledge of fealty I have ever seen in my life. I'm like, that
Yeah.
was just a slap in the face.
I mean, even after
Hmm.
he like pledges his allegiance, right? Like he gives all these remarks like he's not really pledging his allegiance too, right? Like
Mhm.
And then
uh
also to top it off, Rauru, like Zelda's like, you don't believe him. And Raru's like, of course I don't believe him. But then he brings up the wisdom of why he wants Ganon there, or Ganondorf there, is so that he can keep an eye on his enemy.
mhm,
Mhm. Which there's some
So,
truth to that. But
hmm
I wish I kind of wrote down so I knew the words. Part of like the insincerity of Ganondorf was he kind of made a remark like, "Oh, you have the power of the gods, yet you stayed down here where the rest of the zone I left. Like, why?" Because he
mhm,
was kind of like in trying to insult Raru, like, "Oh, you're dwelling amongst the Hylians or whatever, and all the other godlike races vanished. Like, I wonder why." Ho ho ho.
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have the quote, the exact thing right here.
Okay.
It says, when your Zonai ancestors first descended upon these lands long ago, they must have seemed to be gods. And then he goes on to say, and now you rule as king and have taken a Hylian woman as your wife. Uh, and your majesty has certainly risen above your admirable lineage, and it's most impressive. And then the last line he says is, "It is unfortunate that the noble Zonai no longer grace the world with their presence." Um, and then he kind of, "Except you and your sister, that is," he says, and then he grins and kind of gets this smirk on his face. Uh,
Sassy pants.
yeah, and then he says, "Even if something were to happen to me, both my kingdom and the," or this is what Rauru says, "Even if something were to happen to me, both my kingdom and the peace it brings, these will endure for generations to come." So,
Though Ganondorf does have a point. I still like want to know why did the rest of the zone I leave? And that shouldn't take like a very long explanation. I think that's a reasonable question to ask. Like, why are there just
mhm.
two left? Were they just like, ah, these guys aren't good enough for us. Bye. Peace
And where did they
out.
go? Where did they go?
They
well,
joined the other aliens in space.
Mm,
What,
or
Pat? Sorry.
I was gonna say, like Hyrule is not the world, so they could have
yeah.
gone like any other place.
Maybe that's where the third game's going. We're gonna go
Mm.
search for the rest of the Zonai. Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right.
I'll
Well,
save my thoughts on that for later.
tier number 6. I wouldn't call this a boring memory, but it's Zelda and Sonia, and they're just all drinking tea in their gazebo thing. And Zelda asks Sonia how she mastered her power. Blah blah blah. Zelda does mention Link, and I do feel like Rauru kind of like teases her in almost like a paternal manner, like, "Oh, who's
Hmm.
this Link guy? We've never heard of him before." Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
So that seed's planted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so on that note, though, we assume they're in some sort of. You think they're in some sort of
Yes.
relationship? You think they're like a thing?
Did you go to the village and find Link's old house? That is now Zelda's house, and
No.
yet you can. It's like they shared the same house, and Zelda had to have a secret workshop somewhere, in a well underneath the house to be able to do like secret things when referring to Link.
Yeah,
Also, you can sleep in Zelda's bed and restore your health. When Link could only do that in a bed that he owns. So,
Yeah, it's heavily implied. I think the only but however, when I was reading these memories like on my Switch,
Hmm.
they use the word friend. Zelda talks about her friend or something. I don't know if that's just Nintendo just being very coy, but
Probably.
everything else to me is like, dude, they got it for each other. And
Hmm.
I'm okay with
They're
that.
making Hylian babies for sure.
Like I never understood just quick sidebar. I mean, it's related. How some people like, "Oh, I don't like romance in games." Or there's the complete opposite where people love to ship characters and then they get angry when that particular set that they ship is not what turns out to be. Like the whole Sidon thing,
Hmm.
Sidons with Iona, apparently like the internet freaked out cuz they don't like Iona. They'd rather have Sidon, I don't know, not be with
Link.
her. With Link, yes. So like yes. No, that's exactly what it is. And anyway, but the point is I am okay with romances in games, movies, and novels if done right, if not forced. And I do feel like the occasional romance between Link and Zelda, which really only is heavily implied in Skyward Sword and this game, out of all the Zelda
Hmm.
games, I think.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link.
Oh, the
They
kiss.
actually make out.
Okay, yes, that one too. Fine,
Yes.
3 games out of like what 19 or something. So it's like,
8-bit kissing. Gotta
Hmm.
love it.
They make sure the curtain though is like dropped down just to the feet, and then you see them get close.
Oh.
Hmm.
but I
Yeah.
like how they did this. Like they make it subtle. Like we don't I don't need to see those two making out. But so what I see between them two in this game is very yeah, it's very sweet. I like it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But what's not sweet is tier number 7.
Yeah.
Sonia is caught by treachery, which not only was this a big story beat, but it also has some of the weirdest faces I've ever seen. Um, Zelda. Oh my gosh. I hope people are watching Pat's face.
You look
It
just like Ganon.
I'm telling you. So, well, I'll talk about the story part first. Is Sonia walks out with Zelda because Zelda needs to speak with her privately. And you can immediately tell this Zelda's a phony because she's all like, "Ho ho ho!" Evil laugh. I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
Ganondorf, really? Are you that stupid? Yes, it was Ganondorf, just puppet or whatever magic thing. But they Sonia kind of was already suspecting that, and Zelda was there to catch the blade. Haha, we got you, Ganondorf. You can't fool us. And then Sonia gets stabbed in the back by Ganondorf.
Yep.
And that's where Ganondorf has this creepiest open mouth grin I've ever seen. It's
Yeah.
terrifying, so I took a screenshot.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. That whole
Hmm.
like it's like these wide eyes and like it's like you know what it reminds me of a little bit, but like if someone put like you know the sloth from Zootopia?
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of
Yes.
that. Like the wide
When
eyes
he's
and this
about to
big
laugh.
yeah. Yeah.
But then someone had to put like wires to extend his mouth because
Ugh.
mouths don't extend as wide as his mouth did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Man,
so
Yeah.
good
how did you
times.
think memory played out? Because that's a pretty heavy scene. Do you think
Mhm.
Nintendo executed it well?
I think the scene would have hit better if we knew more about Sonya. Like like we didn't have enough memories of of Sonya before then, right? Like we knew she was, you know, Raru's wife and clearly some sort of ancestor of Zelda probably. And but like I said before, like there's not enough to Sonya and it didn't feel
Hmm.
earned, you know? And it like you kind of understood that this was going to happen eventually anyway, right?
Hmm.
Especially at the beginning of the game when Raru shows up and like, oh, Link has Raru's arm attached to his shoulder now. So, you know, you knew he was going to die and that you just assume that Sonya is probably going to die too.
Well, Sonya was shown in the murals where
Yeah.
Ganondorf was taking her stone.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean there was that too. So, I mean, it like it didn't feel earned to me. I think the scene itself is a pretty decent scene, except for like the weird faces. But like, it's the stuff that comes before it that didn't make that scene feel earned, so the scene feels lesser.
No, I agree. Like I recall the mural, and we're all guessing like, is that Zelda? Is that Zelda? That's Sonia.
Mhm.
So like that's a scene we needed and wasn't bad, but because I just didn't really feel much for Sonia beforehand, I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
oh,
feel like one of the scenes later, which jumps a few tiers, when Rauru is going to declare war on Ganondorf, I feel that scene is more earned
mm,
because you could still see Rauru was in pain for losing his wife, and
Hmm.
he wanted to, just take on Ganondorf himself, and everyone's like, nope, nope, bad idea.
Yeah.
yep. Oh, good. And yeah, and then Rauru does show up at the end of this memory where he and Zelda essentially retreat because, well, this bleeds in the next tier, right? Birth of the Demon King.
Hmm.
You can imagine what he does. He takes the stone and just, I don't know, slaps it on his forehead
Hmm.
and transforms into the Demon King. Isn't that also where we saw the Blood Moon?
Yeah, the
First Blood
blood
Moon?
Hmm.
moon. Yeah, and it's kind of like this scene is really cool,
Hmm.
right? Because like I mean, Zelda is sitting there holding Sonia's dead body and watching this like crazy tornado form the Demon King and the Blood Moon rises. This scene is cool. This scene is scary. Like it makes
Yes.
Ganon seem really scary at this
Yeah.
point. Cuz like he has the glowing eyes now and he has like that weird like blood moon toga thing going on.
Yes.
His eyes are
Hmm.
glowing, the horns are like in full he's scared. This scene makes Ganon seem scary.
He went from Daddy Dorf to Demon Dorf.
Mm,
Hmm.
to Demon Daddy Dorf, to
Yep. So,
Daddy Dragon Dorf.
hey, we'll get there. But yeah, so understandable that Rauru and Zelda are like, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna call timeout.
Yeah.
So, yeah. After that, Birth of the Demon King, there is a non-tier kind of quote unquote memory, but that's essentially just the Demon King sending out his army. The thing that you
Hmm.
see in the trailer, like, rise, my children,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah,
That
leave no survivors.
I
Yeah.
like that scene because that actually showed just what Ganondorf was capable, like how he
Mhm.
just materialized all those demons like immediately, and how they started just laying siege in Hyrule.
Yeah.
Like it showed this guy's a threat, and if he were to come back again, there may be no chance to actually stopping that.
Yeah.
Right. And in the trailer, especially with the voice, it's like, oh, it's kind of cheesy. What does this mean? But like when that is now playing out in the right context with the background, I was like, man, because I'm not saying Ganondorf never felt like a threat before. Like he was pretty badass in Twilight Princess, and he was,
Hmm.
badass when he turned into Ganon in Ocarina of Time. But here, I almost felt like it's like a went from like fantasy scary bad guy to like this is like a really evil dude.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the fact that like he can summon like phantom versions of himself, like you kind of fight them periodically throughout the game too, right? And like the um even like when he's sitting there like shooting his like blood moon laser at Raru and Zelda, and Raru kind of uses his shield to block it, and it shatters, but they get out in time, right? Like they transport or something, I assume, out of there. But like, yeah, he gives me like this version of Ganon gives me demise, like
Mhm.
real demise kind of energy. Like he's he's scary. He's scary. I don't know another word, but like like you have to emphasize how scary he is.
Well, this
He,
is
he
more
he felt like a threat.
Yeah.
right. And this is more than Ganondorf, the Gerudo thief from Ocarina of Time, where I think he, at least in the beginning parts of the game, was more like, I'm just going to go conquer
Hmm.
Hyrule. This is more like, I don't want to conquer Hyrule. I want to freaking destroy it.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
different.
Hmm.
Yeah.
um, so, sages, unite! Secret stones!
Right.
Oh, I woke my
Or
son up.
Raru, this is a bad idea. Don't go alone.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a better idea. I'm going to give you each one of these sacred secret stones. That way we can have an army and we could all combine our powers and go and attack him.
It's like Captain
Because
Planet.
yep,
Yeah.
because each one of these sages had a master of an ability, and the Sacred Stone's job was to magnify that ability like 100-fold.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
And then they
really
summon Captain Planet.
yeah. I really like this scene though. Like I like seeing all the sages together. It really like gives me the memories of Ocarina of Time when you first pull the Master Sword out and you see all this. You kind of see like the sages
Mm.
around, in like the blue realm or whatever.
The sacred realm. Get it right, man.
No, it's just an octagon with a blue light hanging over. uh,
Occasional waterfalls.
oh
You
no.
know, I don't think it's necessary, right? And I know there's like sometimes there is such thing as too much. Um, so I'd rather have less with more quality, but I kind of wish I knew a little bit more about the sages. I know that would like double more characters, but like they're always in masks, and when you attend each phenomena with your current sage and then you meet the former sage, you get the same
Hmm.
story
Hmm.
and the mask. So I'm like, well, if you want to give it some flavor, like at least show the face or like a name or something.
I
I mean,
bet you they did that on purpose so they didn't have to explain who these people are.
no, I think they did it because I think this is an easy way to mask animation, like
Mm.
it for a character
Oh,
that's only going to be in the game for like, I mean, a total of like 3 minutes. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, I think a lot of like you see this a lot in games when you're fighting enemies, like, and a lot of them have helmets or masks on, right? Because like if they're going to talk to you, they don't want to have to animate that character for like 3 seconds, so they all wear masks.
nice,
Um,
interesting. That's good
yeah,
to know.
yeah. I mean,
So we conclude that it's just laziness on Nintendo's part.
yes, the 6 years it took them to make this game, that's the lazy part.
I was gonna
No
say, like,
animations, no backstory.
listen, like, I'm not, I don't claim to be a developer nor know anything about it. Oh my goodness, hold on.
Uh-oh.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Definitely
Sorry,
get a
guys.
phone call at 9:30 at night. Something's happening.
Um, but like, how hard is it for a big company like Nintendo to do facial animations for 3 minutes worth of a whole game? Just
Yeah.
saying. If it was like a small indie studio that worked on a game
Mhm.
for like a year or two, put on all the helmets and masks that you need, my friend. But I'm like, come on, Nintendo. Come on.
Yeah. I would have really liked to learn who these sages were. Um,
Maybe DLC? I doubt it, but that would be cool.
yeah, I mean,
I have another
maybe.
thought for DLC, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I yeah, I because like in Breath of the Wild, you kind of learned who the predecessors were, right?
Yep.
And they were kind of animated and there and
They
cool.
got their own amiibo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Anyway, I think the last no, not the last, second to last here, a Master Sword in Time.
mhm,
Zelda retrieves the Master Sword from Link through time, and she knows what she must do. First of all, I don't know how the heck that happened,
mhm,
but second of all, she realizes what she must do, and I think we all know what it is, given how the previous tiers set stuff up.
mhm. Yeah. This
Mhm.
was this scene really like was kind of emotional to watch, even though like I got it, kind of I don't know. This I d- I'm one of those people who like doesn't like it when characters sacrifice themselves, especially because like at the time I didn't know like Zelda was maybe wouldn't come back, and like I love this version of Zelda so much, and like to see this happen to this version of a character that I like so much is like I got really sad when this happened, and I'm like, she's just gonna be this dragon forever, like,
You know, if this was any other story, I would be like, "Yep, and that's it. She's gonna be a dragon floating in the sky forever." But a quick thought in my head when I saw this particular tier, I'm like, because it's Nintendo, she'll turn back. Which I'm like, I don't
mhm,
know how I
Yeah.
feel about that.
yeah,
Give me a Zelda game that actually had a bad ending.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Even
None
though
of them
there's
did.
yeah, even with a
None of them.
downfall timeline in air quotes still didn't have a bad ending. So
Hmm. But yeah, every
Um,
ending, involved having the princess be rescued and Hyrule being happy. Like even the even Breath of the Wild, before it becomes Tears of the Kingdom.
yeah.
hmm
I mean, my big question is, I don't know. I'll save it for later. I'll save it.
it's all right. We're almost rounding the end. I mean, the next part, the next memory or whatever you want to call it, is not a tier, but it's basically Zelda informs Minoru what she's about to do, and Minoru pledges her help. So that's kind of
Hmm.
where we learn for fact that Minoru will be in the Pad, right?
Hmm.
And that's kind of their plans are in place. Once you collect those 11 dragon tiers, the 12th tier will appear, quote unquote, at the Spirally Island. And that's where, yeah, Zelda leaves the Pad in Minoru's care. And this is really sad, guys. Zelda swallows the stone, and she turns into a dragon while kind of holding on to the Master Sword.
Yeah, and the music here like the
Mm,
builds and builds and builds and makes it like that much more like of a more powerful scene. You know?
Hmm.
Oh man, this scene kind of like really made me sad.
It made you tear up.
I mean, almost not
mm,
quite, but it was. I felt some things in this scene. Um, so because like you just see her like swallow it, and then you see her eyes turn that bright blue color, right? And
mm.
then she kind of like takes off, and oh,
Yeah. It's definitely more impactful because in Breath of the Wild, we don't see her in the process of holding back Calamity Ganon in that gross little egg sack in the Hyrule Castle, right? We
mhm,
just see in the memory that she's got to do what she's got to do, and then that's it. Then she's in the egg sack thing. Here, it's like we're actually seeing her in process of sacrificing herself, and obviously in this case, it's kind of a bigger sacrifice and more
yeah,
a heavier price to pay. So I think that's where it hit me because I get to witness her doing something intentional. Um, Zelda having her own agency. Um, I can feel like it pains her. I almost feel like this is where a little bit of the romance part comes back a bit because I just feel like there's this unspoken thing, like she's actually going to really miss him. Like I
mhm,
know she understands the duty that he needs to perform, but like she actually like will miss
mhm,
that she'll never
yeah,
see him again, never make more memories with him again, no pun intended. So,
yeah.
Making memories with him.
yeah, special
Mm,
memories.
mm,
Also, great dragon design.
Hmm.
I have a dragon tattoo already, and let me tell you, when we get to the final battle, I want two more dragon tattoos.
yeah,
You
that
should get all four of them now.
Oh yeah.
she's yeah, I you could really feel her like emotion towards Link in this scene for sure. So,
That's okay. We'll get to see Link reciprocate it later.
Yeah. So, with that being said, that's kind of the dragon tears, the bulk of the memories. I don't know if we want to quickly touch base before we get to the final boss and ending is actually retrieving the Master Sword, which does
mhm,
involve the light dragon. So Zelda turns into the light dragon. Um, it eventually you do see the dragon in the sky, and it's like embedded in her forehead.
yeah,
And I thought it was clever because when you needed the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild, you needed hearts, and in this case, you needed stamina.
ah,
Did
Hmm.
y'all have enough when you made your attempt?
Yep.
I so I actually had to go sacrifice some hearts for some stamina to go do this. Um, I had been stocking up on hearts because I was like, I didn't know you needed stamina. I thought you were gonna need hearts. I'm like, well, in Breath of the Wild, you needed 13 hearts or whatever, and like, I was like, I'm gonna get all these hearts, and then I went and did it, and I'm like, you need stamina, and I do not have nearly enough, and so I had to go back to like that praying statue and like
Mhm.
swap them out and pay some rupees for it. But yeah, it was who knew, right?
Yeah, that was a great it was such a powerful, touching scene. I was just wearing that flying suit
Mm.
costume outfit. So like this whole time when I was taking these awesome screenshots, I was wearing that bird mask. I was like, damn it, it kind of ruined it. I'm just like Birdman pulling a sword from a dragon's head.
I was wearing the Twilight Princess outfit.
Oh, nice.
That's the only outfit I've worn through the entire game. I've even like upgraded it. 'Cause,
I don't even remember. It's been too long what I was wearing.
uh,
What? You don't know what you were wearing on the day you pulled out the Master Sword?
No, I do not.
oh man, that sounds like an after dark topic.
Help. Get us out of here. Well, not out of
Help.
here.
Uh,
Help us to get to the I
uh,
don't know. Is there anything else we want to talk about before we get to the final confrontation?
I don't think so. I really like. I just want to say I really, even though like I didn't get the story points in order, going through and watching them in order, I really appreciate Nintendo's kind of newfound attempt to tell a story, right? And I know like previous Zelda games had stories, and like Twilight Princess did an okay job of telling a story there, and Skyward Sword was kind of like the first like real attempt it felt like of like telling like this real story of
Mhm,
friendship and this relationship that's building. And uh Breath of the Wild, I feel like as much as I like the characters and the story, it kind of was that story like impact wasn't as good as Skyward Swords, but this feels like it really impacts these characters and really like truly gives you like their feelings for each other. The backstory of of Hyrule and the Zonai was nice to see. New characters. I I love the story. I love watching the memories in order.
mhm.
It's a really special story, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It satisfied me greatly. I enjoy it. So yeah, that's the only thing I want to recap of that. So how about you, Pat? How'd you feel like overall?
None of the scenes quite had the impact to me as when Zelda collapsed in tears with Link because
Oh,
she felt like she failed.
Hmm.
Like that one still gives me chills, but I will say the story overall, I like the story better because it just one Zelda was definitely more grown up. She didn't she always came off as like whiny and spoiled, and just like I don't want to deal with like having to call my sacred power to you know
mhm,
she sees more urgency in her mission.
Hmm.
mhm.
Yeah.
Like she knows what she has to do this time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you, Pat.
Thank you.
Well, should we get to the battle, the final battle?
Defeating
Ugh.
Ganondorf. I think. I mean, no, Pat. You were the one who's like, it's pretty obvious where you need to find Ganondorf. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Corey, did you ever take some time trying to find Ganondorf? What's
I
going
did
on?
I did, but then you guys
Mhm.
you're gonna laugh. You guys are gonna laugh.
Ah,
I had a different mission selected, and so I was trying to go there to fight Ganondorf. It was
so
not
where were
that.
you going?
I don't know. I don't know. Just I started going off to like the northeast corner of the map. I'm like, why do I have to go over here? Is there something I have to go over here and do? And then I opened my thing. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Especially after we all talked, I'm like, I'm having such a hard time. What is going on?
To be fair, I think Nintendo kind of intended, if you were to follow everything, is wherever Master Koga was going, like Master Koga in the end was supposed to ultimately hint at where Ganondorf was. But I mean, like,
Hmm.
come on, like
Yeah.
you just drop all the way. I thought it was pretty epic that you just you go to the pits of hell. You're like in the freaking
Mhm.
center of the earth. Well, okay, I'm exaggerating, but you go pretty deep. I liked this approach to a final boss. It's not always the most fun, like the approach to the final boss in Metroid Prime Remastered that I just played,
Hmm.
because you go through the same places you explored with Zelda in the beginning.
Hmm.
Did you see Zelda's torch? Zelda's torch that
Mhm.
she dropped when she fell. Um, you see the mural again that was initially blocked off by rocks, and now you can blow up the rocks and see what is the rest of the mural.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now, can we like just talk about how freaking deep that was? Like
Yes.
they're like, oh, we're going under the castle. What they didn't fail to tell is that like we're going a mile underground in tunnels underneath the castle.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, Nintendo's always been good at that, at the little touches, right? Like, even, the little things, they've always, the attention to detail in their, even like level design. I mean, anything from Mario to Zelda to Metroid to like anything that you play from Nintendo really is like, there's always these little details. And I love, like, when I saw the torch, I was like, oh man, that's such a,
Mm,
you know,
that's sad.
yeah.
Now, here's something that I actually appreciated as a challenge. Most times I find to be a pain in the butt because I'm a bad gamer. But there's usually a slog of enemies. It doesn't surprise me if there's a slog of enemies before the final showdown, but you just kick their butts and take their hearts, right? But in this
Hmm.
case, and Pat gave me a good tip, is stock up on a lot of like the either gloom resistance or gloom recovery, because there's a Lionel in there. Like, there are a lot of enemies that sure you can beat them, but every time they hit you, you actually lose a heart due to gloom. So
Hmm.
unless you recover them with like the Sunday Lions, you don't really recover that health back. And that's like, there was one kind of playthrough, so to speak, where I only had a couple of active hearts left by the time I got to where I needed to get to for Ganondorf. So I was like, crap, let me go back to the sky and get more Sunday Lions and make more of those.
Yep, I told you specifically if you think you have enough gloom cures, you don't have enough gloom cures on this. Like
Hmm.
everything takes it away. And the final battle, Ganon, that every single attack Ganon
Yeah.
does, it does gloom damage.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I definitely made some of the gloom, like, potion elixir stuff. I definitely had a lot of the gloom resistant stuff when I went in there, but I had been like collecting it and doing it because I was like doing stuff in the depths, and I was like, if I'm going to go explore the depths, I need to have this stuff anyway.
Mhm.
And then I would go explore a different part of the depths, and like there wouldn't be any. I'm like, oh well, I kind of wasted my time doing this, but I'm glad I did it because like it doesn't tell you any of that
Mhm.
stuff. Um, but I'm really glad that I did. Uh,
Yeah,
mhm.
was a lot of fun. So any other comments with like the descent and leading up to Ganondorf?
it's kind of like not really anxiety inducing, but like really like, oh my gosh, it's happening, it's coming, and then
Very
like you,
atmospheric.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
For me, though, I
yeah.
wish Nintendo did not put the Hyrule Castle level right there, too, because I went all the way to the very end of the depths before I realized that I was about ready to beat the game and not in the direction that I needed to go. It's like
Oh.
I'm like thinking, how do I get up to the Hyrule Castle? And after the forest, I'm like, oh, maybe there's that giant pillar. Maybe there's a bottom to the pillar and you just ascend through it. No, that's not how that works. I finally got to where the center is, and that's exactly where the Ganondorf fight is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I then immediately what did I do? I left. I left that dungeon pretty damn fast.
Well, thank goodness for Ascend though.
Yeah, oh
Hmm.
man, ascend, what a what a strange power that just breaks the game.
Love it though. Love it.
uh,
So, very epic start to the final sequence where it's essentially like a horde. You fight, various waves of gloom infested enemies, but you have your sages, the real ones. They finally come to is this the right time that they come? I think that's when they come,
Yep,
right? It's been a while.
this is where they come during
mhm.
the battles against the minions.
Very, very epic. It makes a big difference. Like, it's nice to have their avatars with you, but it's just such a rewarding moment because this is what you've worked hard for if you've done the phenomenon. Like, I've not only done those to get the avatars or whatever I needed, but they're actually here to help me. So I I had a blast fighting through it. I don't think it was particularly difficult.
Hmm.
I actually found like a quick and easy like zonai construction where it's literally just like a honing device and like a laser beam and two cannons, and it was just literally destroying everything for me. But the problem is usually I'm in the way because I'm also fighting the enemies.
Mhm.
um, yeah, I thought it was cool. I like when it almost felt like a Mass Effect vibe a little bit, where like when in Mass Effect 3 when you're kind of like seeing all of your allies for like the last time. And like I almost thought that this is what was going to happen, is like Link was going to sacrifice himself to kill Ganondorf in a way. Like I kind of thought that might be where it's going initially. Um and so I thought it was going to be like a Neo Agent Smith sort of situation from the Matrix, where like neither can if one lives the other lives, if one dies the other dies type
Mm.
situation. Um Sorry to reference a 20-year-old movie at this point, but yeah, I thought that like especially like when you get to Ganon, I thought his first form was like extremely easy. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be kind of like this is gonna be kind of like the Breath of the Wild part, where like you've made it here and now they're just gonna reward you with like some easy fights. Uh, but Ganon's second form was actually pretty challenging
Talking about the
in my opinion.
demon form.
Yeah.
Well, let me just first tell you that I loved the theatrics of dehydrated Ganon turning into hydrated Ganon, and
Hmm.
him like
Mhm.
the "Don't look" was that the "Don't look away" quote that he says?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
he like shing the samurai sword. But yeah, no, but I do like the sword. The hand to hand combat reminds me of Twilight Princess a little bit.
Hmm.
I think yeah, that first form is a bit easy, but that gets you acclimated, right? Because once he turns into his demon form and he hits you, you lose like maybe not even one, but like two of your hearts due to gloom, and that that mother effer. You flurry, do the flurry rush. That dude will flurry
Mhm.
rush you.
Hmm.
It just gets worse and worse the lower his hit points go. That he can
Mhm.
like literally do it like you flurry, then he flurries, and then you have to flurry again.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I found myself running away a lot.
Yeah. I struggle with timing anyway, so what I do is I instead of him flurrying because I'm flurrying, I just like swipe at him to cause him to flurry. So like
Hmm.
I only need to do it kind of once, not twice.
Hmm.
Um he does have like he rotates, I believe, between three different weapons, I think. There's
Sword,
the
spear, club.
yes.
Sorry, other way around. Sword, club, spear, sword, club, spear. He
Yeah.
does that circle rotation.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone felt like one of those was easier than the other. I think the sword was kind of the easiest for me. The club's just a big, strong weapon. You just gotta avoid it. He sends shockwaves of gloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the club was easy to because it had a larger wind up. It was easy to flurry that one. I found the spear easier to dodge aside because those were mostly straight attacks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
though honestly, it got to the point where I pushed him against the wall, and that's how I screwed him over. Like he can't flurry by jumping backwards.
Ah,
Well, he flurried, but he couldn't get away from my attack. So
got it.
I just literally kept him on the wall and just attacked him.
Oh, and all the while, the sages are still there helping you until there's a certain point in the second phase where he
Yeah.
just like knocks them out and be like, "That's enough."
Yeah. Yeah, that was that usually happens though in these games, right? Where like that second form kind of takes like half like when the halfway point of his life goes down, he just becomes even more powerful, right? Like it was so like when they're not helping you and he like gets even more like demony, and like he does the like come at me with his hand and he's like
Mhm.
laughing
Oh
under his
yeah,
breath. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, this is
he's a
so
cocky guy.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I did appreciate the sages for when they were there, not necessarily because they were doing a lot of damage to Ganondorf himself, but he remember how he had like like little clones of himself, so it was a
Hmm.
bit chaotic. So I kind of let them kind of take care of the clone ones while I just focus, like keeping my eye on the real Demon King because it can get really chaotic in that fight,
Oh yeah.
which I will say I did not experience any lagging or chugging from my Switch, which I was kind of worried about. How did you guys experience any performance issues?
Mm-mm. I didn't. I
No.
it definitely ran pretty smooth. This game ran pretty smooth overall.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
was I very rarely had any sort of frame rate dips or anything. This game definitely like really great performance, especially in like heavy fight, like especially like when there's a ton of enemies on screen, like you said, when when he has his like shadow versions of himself,
Hmm.
and your allies are with you, and you're like trying to avoid stuff, and he sends like those little flames out, right? Like there's a lot going on the
Yeah.
screen at one time in such a small space, and like this, I didn't feel any hiccups or anything.
Yeah. Oh, that was a um, great experience.
Yeah.
Uh,
This boss fight though, and even like before the final phase, like this boss fight felt like this was a great final boss fight. Like I really thought that this was like way more epic, and feeling of like I'm actually gotta like try at this, because Breath of the Wild, like it didn't feel that way. I mean, if you did all the divine beast, like his health was like already halfway down, right? And then you
mhm.
just kind of shot
Yeah, I
the
was
giant.
gonna ask. First few forms of Ganondorf versus Calamity Ganon. What'd you guys prefer?
Oh, the Ganondorf for sure.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah,
No, that Breath of the Wild probably had one of the worst final bosses I felt
yeah,
out of any of the Zelda games.
yeah. I think they wanted you to feel like you actually accomplished finishing the game, and like by the time you got there, like it was truly like that. I mean, that I think when the game first came out, I said this that that boss fight was like the easiest part of the entire game, and it was kind of, for such a great game, like that was pretty disappointing, was that boss fight,
Hmm.
and this felt like it totally redeemed itself.
Exactly. And I would think it's safe to say that we feel the same with the final forms because Dark Beast Skin was incredibly a letdown. Whereas if I can move on to the final, where apparently you piss off the Demon King so much that he says that he's willing to do anything just to eliminate you, which
Hmm.
I think is, oh, I'm like, I thought he was a bit smarter than that, but I guess he just
Hmm.
really hates you now.
Yeah,
He swallows the stone. He just rips it from his forehead. I'm like,
yeah, he
damn.
does.
He eats it. I think the eating of the stone visual was a little weird looking.
He two-handed that stone.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did.
I was like,
This little tiny like skittle sized stone, he just like, bah, you know.
right. And
But like,
then, oh, come on, got it.
oh, I was gonna say, when he rips it out of his head, he just like literally just like grabs the whole thing and just like rips it out. I'm like, this is so aggressive. I mean,
Hmm.
I get he's angry, but it's so aggressive.
Oh
Oh.
yeah,
Uh,
Women like that.
I
I
mean,
guess so.
It's like, hey, it's
yeah.
just like how the guys like Lady D stepping on them.
Oh
You know,
gosh,
ladies
yeah.
like Ganon throttling them.
Okay.
Oh boy, the
Well, he
word.
got throttled by that stone, and he. At first, I'm like, oh no, he's not turning into Calamity because the little smoke whoosh thing was very
Hmm.
Calamity like. I'm like, oh no, please no. And he turned into a dragon.
Yeah, that whole visual of him turning into the dragon was awesome. Like him kind of coming out of the pit and up like through and around the castle.
Hmm.
Very cool visual. Very, very cool visual.
And I keep talking about how things are epic, but I think this is one of the most epic scenes just by the scale. Because then Zelda, the light dragon, comes zooming in, and you're like you're high up in the sky, and you see both dragons come head to head. It is an
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic visual. Like it does feel so huge, so massive.
Mhm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
damn.
Visually impressive for a Switch game too, right? Like you see both dragons over Hyrule Castle over like and then you can like still see across the land, right? Like
Mhm.
this scene was like graphically intense, animation was intense, like the whole thing was just masterpiece of a showcase of what the Switch can still do
Mhm.
this long into its lifespan. Um but yeah, I mean, like you said, Stephanie, like when Zelda's dragon comes in, it like seeing them kind of face off against each other a little bit, and like her trying to get Link out of his grasp and everything, really cool visual. And like the way like you're like the dragon catches Link, so
Mhm.
cool. And the way they like kind of use that mechanic throughout the boss fight is really cool too.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the actual fight itself?
The actual fight was not bad. I kind of figured the final fight was going to be gimmicky, just kind of based off of how Breath of the Wild's final fight was gimmicky as well. Um, like overall, like I, I'm going to say something a little controversial. I did not like the fact that he turned into a dragon, because to me, Ganondorf was always supposed to be the pig.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And so now, we completely ignore the fact that that's what Ganon has been, the demon pig, for countless of games, and now he's a dragon
Mhm.
That's
Pig
with
a
dragon.
no signs of being a pig.
that's a good point, but we could make the argument that he still could be a pig, but he only turned into a dragon because of the draconification.
Hmm.
Eh?
Yeah.
Eh?
Then give him a pig nose. Come on.
Oh. Oh.
Make him a pig nose dragon.
Where he goes oink oink.
Yeah.
No, but I agree
Oh,
with the gimmicky part.
Hmm.
Like it was definitely like the easiest part, but
Yeah.
I forgave
It
it.
was it was awesome, like cinematic wise. You
I
know,
think it was the cinematics that helped it.
hmm but
hmm,
yeah, nothing that you learned throughout the entire game helped you in that battle. That was
yeah,
basically just go find the glowy bit and smack it, jump
yeah.
off and do again.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this was definitely the easiest part of the fight for sure, but I think that, like just the scale of the fight really saved it. And
Mhm.
like, look, I mean, I kind of like this kind of break in the boss fight because the first, like, especially the second phase, I had a ton of trouble with it. Now, granted, I was super tired and uh didn't sleep to do that, but like that second phase in particular was so it was really hard for me. And so like having this kind of epic kind of easy fight but really cinematic and kind of able to finish it and like be feel like I accomplished something was really uh I enjoyed it. I love the fact that the dragons are like facing off and you're just kind of jumping from one to the other. Um,
Mhm.
so that's kind of how I feel.
Nice.
What about you, Stephanie? What I mean, you kind of you kind of said, but you kind of didn't. I mean, did you? What do you
I
think of
kind
the
of
fight?
said, but I kind of didn't.
Yeah.
No, no, I really enjoyed the dragon fight. I do understand it. It was the easier of all of them, and like Pat said, the quote unquote gimmicky part. But I was too busy enjoying the fact that I got to leap off of Zelda Dragon and literally dive bomb my way onto Ganon Dragon's back, and then just leap off again and ascend into the sky. So it was like it was more of a victory lap
Hmm.
and a much more fun victory lap than the Breath of the Wild version. So I was okay with it, and yeah, that the final strike, the final blow to Ganondorf Dragon was also like that dragon was in a lot of pain. I was like, oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
Sword goes right through the head.
that's a common theme,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Remember
mean,
when that happened in Link's not Link's
Wind Waker.
Awakening, Wind Waker,
Yeah,
and it was human form where the sword goes through the head. It's like shit, he dead.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that callback.
Hmm.
But then like there's just like this atomic explosion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like what is happening here?
So, which
Uh,
is it's kind of funny when you mention that because you were talking about you didn't know the ending in the previous the book clubs before then. You were like, oh, wonder how the sequel's going to be, and it's like, dude, he ain't coming back. he was atomized.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could. I mean, we'll
He
talk
ain't
about
coming
it
back.
in a little
No.
bit. You could have different villain though, right? I mean,
Yeah, you can have a different
Different
villain, but it
villain
ain't
or
gonna be Ganondorf.
no. No, he's
Peg Ganon.
yeah, Pig
No,
Ganon.
no,
Not
Pig Ganon was the one before.
Vadi.
Yeah,
There
I
you
mean,
go.
Vadi would be the one,
Just
right?
like
Body.
Yeah,
I would prefer body.
yeah. I mean, that seems like a natural. I mean, if they kept this series going, right? I mean, if they don't
Hmm.
like start something new the next time around, um,
all right.
which is something we can talk about later.
Who
But
wants to take us home with the ending sequence?
oh
Okay,
man, like
this was good.
yeah, it was pretty powerful. Link got naked for this scene apparently. But
I kind of wonder why they decided to take off his shirt
I
for
I mean,
this.
I think it was more of like a hey, this is going to be a cutscene that's kind of important, and we don't want somebody wearing like an elephant nose and some kind of like bird costume, right?
But
We
the
need it
thing
to
is,
be.
the pants were whatever you had on.
Mm.
I mean, well, then I mean, oh well, I mean, if I think they wanted to show the arm, maybe was like the big
Okay,
thing, right? And like, there's not really like a sleeveless costume, so maybe that was the thing, because like when they heal, like obviously the part we're talking about is like they're kind of floating in the middle of the sky for some. They didn't decide to do this on the ground. They did it in, like 3 miles up in the air. Uh, but like his arm is healed after this part, like after they like use the light to save Zelda and Zelda turns back into Zelda from the dragon.
hmm
uh like his arm is kind of normal again, you know and I
yeah,
think they wanted to show that.
yeah, that makes more sense now.
Yeah,
Them healing his arm.
yeah.
Well, yeah. So Link kind of looks up and we see Raru and Sonia, and they don't say anything, which part of it makes sense. Like I don't know, but like Raru has spoken to Link before, so I would have thought at least Raru would have said "good job" or
Yeah.
"thank you," or but no, whatever, it's fine. And then, oh, Pat, this I know we talked about this when it happened, but I loved how this game came full circle when Zelda regained her physical form and she was falling, and you had to catch her because Link,
Hmm.
not that I think it's his fault, but he failed to catch her the first time.
Hmm.
That's right. That I thought was probably the best part of this ending was
Hmm.
the full circle because it made it so much more emotional. Where Link finally, reaches out and his physical hand grabs her, and then he can pull her in, and then he takes the fall
Hmm.
Mm.
into the lake
Hmm.
to protect her.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the scene in Spider-Man: No Way Home when Andrew Garfield got to have his small redemption.
Hmm.
Like
Mhm.
that scene meant a lot too to me.
Yeah.
Uh, I
um
like redemption stories, and that
Yeah.
particular scene was Link's redemption.
yeah,
Well, I
and
feel like. Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna quickly add to like redemption stories do carry a certain type of a weight because I don't know. It just means a lot more when there's growth. Anyway,
Hmm.
sorry.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I really like you had to hold A to grab her hand, and like that's like that frame, just that frame of him grabbing her hand, and you kind of see her hand kind of like give a little bit of a grasp, even though she's still like kind of out of it. Like that little touch was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I don't know, that got me.
I failed
That
the first time
Hmm.
because I wasn't sure how long to hold it.
So what happened? Did she just like drop and then they redid the scene?
No, no, I still had some time because we were still pretty
Oh.
high up. They just like did it again, and I'm like, all right, I know what I was supposed to do. Whoops.
Yeah. And then like when he carries her out of the lake too,
Hmm.
Hmm.
I I don't know. I just feel like their connection is so felt in this entire game, and it's ugh. Oh, it's so good.
Seriously, how can you be friends after that?
I know.
Like
Hmm.
I know they should have been making Hyrule babies right there in the field.
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, she's gonna jump him right there. They're in a field where no one else is around. They just saved Hyrule again. She hasn't seen him in thousands of years.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but if I've been thousands of years as just like a dragon in the sky, I'd probably want to take a shower first. I don't know.
yeah,
You were
maybe.
just in the lake.
uh, but like even the way she looks at him,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like very like she's so glad to see him and happy that he's there and realizing that what happened is it's like
Yeah, it makes it believable, like the look on her face, like she just genuinely didn't think she would live to see the day that she would be back as a Hylian and with Link.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I just I think this whole scene was great. And then like, when they kind of the whole thing though, like the castle is still in the sky, how they're gonna get it down. you know?
I think at this point it's safe to say you just move.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not use that castle anymore. It's got bad juju.
I mean, Pat, you said earlier in the show they have that house. I guess that's where
Yeah,
they're gonna live now.
Zelda lived in Link's house after the calamity, and she built a school in that town. Like seriously, I could almost just see Hyrule just not existing and just being separate little towns. Like
Mhm.
Hmm.
I don't know, or them building a new castle somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
we all got the true ending, right? Because we got
Yeah.
all the sages.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What do you guys think of the true ending? Like, I wouldn't say I liked it, but I just thought that, ooh, true ending. Like, I
Yeah.
wonder if there's gonna be something really significant. Still touching.
Hmm.
Does anyone want to cover that?
This ending makes me think that they're making another Breath of the Wild game
But
with these
what?
characters.
Interesting.
This and because they say they're going to protect the land no matter what. Like
From what?
we're going to find out. But I mean, this honestly, this true ending kind of makes me think they're going to revisit these characters again somewhere somehow. Uh, and I do want to get into that a little bit, but I want to finish talking about the game first,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to kind of hit on our overall thoughts of the entire game. I mean, the stuff that we did, I guess, so far, and you know, I like this scene. I like seeing all the characters together. Not really needed. I like that we got to say goodbye to Menoru though, because like
Yeah.
she's again really cool character. Um, so yeah, I like seeing all the characters together, and it kind of reminds me of them, kind of like the sages standing around the
Yeah.
with
Mhm.
Raru.
Yeah, it was a direct reflection of how all the tribes swore fealty to Raru. And again, it's like Hyrule is united. All the tribes are again pledging their loyalty to the one princess.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So it was touching.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I I really liked it. I'm sad we had to say bye to Minoru though, but I
Yeah.
I wonder. I want I want to see more of that, like them though now. Like I want to see more of Minoru and Raru, and like what does the spirit realm look like? What is it? What is this, like a version of the Twilight realm? Right? Like where are they at? It's I
Well,
have so many questions.
Mhm.
that's kind of like my wish list for DLC, and because it's on my wish list, I know it will definitely not be in the DLC. My two wish list items for DLC would either be to spend more time with Raru, Sonia, and the Zonai, so whether it be like with Zelda in the past, which that ain't gonna happen, but that'd be cool.
Hmm.
The other
Mhm.
is, and I've heard this talked about on the Zelda cast, is draconification, right? You swallow a stone, you become a dragon. There are already 3 dragons already circulating. Dinral, Farosh, and Nadra, which we haven't seen the Triforce either, and they kind of represent like the 3 goddesses by name. Would be so cool if the DLC explored like those dragons. Were those used to be living beings that went undergone draconification?
Hmm.
But I know for 120% fact that the DLC will not address those 2 things.
Mm. I don't think there's going to be DLC for this game.
Yeah, I don't either.
I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was DLC, but I mean, the fact that they kind of came out and said that the original ideas for this game were originally DLC ideas for Breath of the Wild, that they just evolved into an entire game. Um, I don't know. And I wonder how many people are still going to care about this game in like a year. You know, I mean, people will, right? I mean,
Mhm.
but uh,
Yeah, I figure if there was going to be DLC, it would have been announced by now.
yeah, because I feel like the season pass for Breath of the Wild was announced before the game came out because you could buy them
Mhm.
together.
And then you think of all the other DLCs like Xenoblade, or yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles or Fire Emblem. They were either announced like just before the game came out or like within weeks after.
Yeah, my only thought to that though is like this game has a very specific ending, and I wonder if the DLC would take place after the ending, and they didn't want to spoil the ending.
I was gonna wait till hold out till the September direct
Hmm.
because the amiibo are for holiday. So I guess it's possible the DLC could come on the holiday. But again, it's more of
Hmm.
a well, we'll see what happens. If it's announced, it's announced. If it's not announced, then it's not announced. We've already got a lot of other to play.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Um. So yeah, I mean, I still think I still think there's going to be a third game in this universe, though.
All right, so can let's talk
Hmm.
about that now then. Cause why? Because I don't know if I can handle a third game in the same Hyrule. The
Yeah,
the Sky Islands and
yeah,
Depths, great, but it's enough.
yeah. I mean, we were kind of talking about this on the Boss Rush podcast, um, where and we kind of ended that conversation because we wanted to save it here. But like, if they I love these versions of Zelda and Link and these characters. I love this version of Zelda, but they got to go somewhere else next time. If they do another game in this Hyrule and like that was kind of been my issue with this game in general. Like as much as I love it and as much as I loved playing it and being with these characters again, oh, it's fine. My backpack fell off the chair. There's a ghost in here.
Maybe
Um,
it's Minoru.
it's fine. That was scary. It's fine. Uh, as much as I love this game, like I feel like the sense of exploration was gone because I spent so much time in this world already with Breath of the Wild,
Yep.
and so I felt like it almost felt like I was going through the motions, and like yeah, when I hit a story beat that was awesome, or the new shrines were great, but like I didn't feel like I needed to explore the world because I had already done it,
Hmm.
and that kind of like took this game down a step for me from Breath of the Wild because that sense of exploration was gone. And so if I if we went somewhere new, I feel like this that would have been like a better game in a sense because it would have been that sense of exploration would have been there. But also I think kind of they did enough to make the world still feel fresh, right? But I just always knew where I was and kind of oh well I need to go here to do this and I knew where I was going.
Hmm.
No, yeah, I in Breath of the Wild, I wanted to climb every hill, explore every nook and cranny. In this case, I'm like, I'll hit the caves. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I know Nintendo said this is kind of the new Zelda way, like maybe the open worldy type stuff, but
Hmm.
I just do a different Hyrule next time. We're good.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of places you could go, right? Like I mean, you could even go to something like a new version of Termina or, if like I don't know if like a Twilight realm exists in this world, but you could go like to a different realm. You could go to, I mean, if low rule exists in this world, I don't know, but I mean, maybe
Here's
the
the,
depths kind of took that place, but
here's the thing. I don't think Nintendo cares about their previous Zelda titles. I don't think they care enough.
And I
no.
think they showed that with this one too. Like they almost took everything that happened in Breath of the Wild and just like, oh yeah, that happened. You know, we have tied Calamity Ganon and Ganondorf together? Absolutely. People originally had theories that maybe Calamity was Ganondorf's power leaking.
Hmm.
You know, like he accumulates power and it leaks out, and that caused the Calamity. But no, we they were basically separate events. And in one of the notes on Ganondorf's character, it said the Calamity is the reason he started gaining powers because it broke the seal around him. So, like, so why do we have a character named Ganon and another character named Ganondorf? They used to be one and the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Timelines. I don't think Nintendo cares.
I mean,
Like,
No.
this has no viable reason to the timeline or anything else of that.
yeah,
Like,
I think, I mean, Nintendo's always been that way though. Like they want to make a good game first, and like they'll, if they can tie it into something, maybe they will, maybe they won't. Who
yeah,
knows?
yeah. Miyamoto was always against like stories. He wanted the gameplay to be the key.
Yeah. Yeah. I am a little shocked that this wasn't kind of tied more into Breath of the Wild, like in a real serious way. Like, I mean, yeah, the opening was clearly like okay, we're doing a sequel, but like it kind of felt like it could stand alone as its own game, which I think maybe they wanted to an extent to get more people in. Like they didn't feel like they had to play the Breath of the Wild to get the most out of Tears of the Kingdom. Um,
I didn't like though that the events followed exactly the way they did in Breath of the Wild. Like you had each location for the major phenomenon were the locations of where the divine beasts were.
mhm.
Like they didn't even bother to shift it up, like throw some in a mountain or like go explore the jungle more. It's we're just reusing the same locations again.
Nintendo did a lot of that in Tears of the Kingdom,
Mhm.
um, for sure.
Yeah. Um,
And speaking of continuity, it did kind of bother me. Certain characters seem to not know who Link was. I think the biggest one that sticks out like a sore thumb for me, and I was actually kind of offended as the player, was Hudson. He like acted like he didn't know who I was. I was like, hey, hey, hey. We went through a whole side quest together in Breath of the Wild, and you're treating me like you don't know who I am.
oh man.
Lame.
I mean, he does have all those people holding up his signs all over the place.
That dude has it rough.
um, so yeah, I mean, I think in terms of this game, I think it's an amazing game. I think it's an amazing accomplishment, but I still feel like story wise, it's way better than Breath of the Wild. In terms of the game itself, I still think the magic of Breath of the Wild makes that game higher on my list than this one. Um, so
Yep. And I will say that I feel like this game basically made Breath of the Wild irrelevant
I
for
agree.
me.
I have zero reason to go back to Breath of the Wild. This many reasons.
yeah,
That's just us, Corey. Don't let us make you think that your opinion's wrong on that.
no, I
It
I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, sorry.
the game was just too similar to Breath of the Wild in the exact same way that A Link Between Worlds was too similar to A Link to the Past, that it made A Link to the Past completely irrelevant because you're practically playing Link to the Past 2.0.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I'm just saying my experience. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Tears of the Kingdom is like the definitive version of these two
Hmm.
games at this point. Like, if you're
Yeah,
gonna play one, it's gonna be this one.
right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying like the magic of Breath of the Wild and playing that game for the first time was lost in this game
No,
because
I agree.
of its
I can see that. Yeah.
directness. You know,
Yes.
so.
Yep.
like walking out into the Grand Chateau or the Grand
Hmm.
Plateau, not Chateau, Plateau,
The Great
Yeah.
and
Plateau, yeah.
just seeing the world,
Yeah.
just
Hmm. Yeah.
vibrant. Yeah.
And like
Exactly. Yep.
I still really feel like the dungeons in this game were 1,000% better than the than the divine beasts.
Hmm.
I really like the sages. I really like some of the evolutions of this. I think the story was 1,000% better, and that that would be the reason to play this game is for the story and the characters and the divine or in the the dungeons. Uh,
Hmm.
the shrines, I think a lot of the shrines are really well put together. The
Yeah, the
dragons,
shrines were definitely much better thought out than.
yeah. And the dragon tears were definitely worth it. Um, so that's my final thoughts. Anybody? What's next? What do we do? What do we? Are we done? Is that it? Did we do it?
I think we can put a nice bow on top of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We waited 6 long years for this. Um, I I did not mind paying $70 for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said at the beginning, I played a lot of it, but because I kind of already played it in Breath of the Wild, I'm more likely to be able to be okay with putting it down, so I can play other games and revisit it another time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I after I think after after I play Pikmin 4 on the Switch, this will be my this might be my I'm in bed and I want to do a shrine or two before I go to bed type game now, right? Um, and while I play other games, right? Like I still want to play Final Fantasy 16, which is the book club, like we mentioned for next month. I still want to play the Star Wars game that came out
Mm.
earlier this year, Jedi Survivor. Starfield comes out soon, which who knows if I mean I'll play it. I'm excited for it, but that game is very daunting and a game that I don't know if I have enough time to play, to be honest with you.
You
I,
know, I've never beat Skyrim.
Yeah, dude, I played an hour of Sky. I played an hour of Skyrim and I couldn't get out of that town where the dragon was attacking, and I just quit playing. I tried it 3 times. I didn't know where to
My
go.
my issue was I just never really touched the main story. I did like
Well,
I went all around everywhere else, but not the story. So
yeah,
I played like 100 hours into Skyrim, but just never beat it.
it's it's funny because like I actually really loved Oblivion, and then I never
mm,
never played Skyrim past the first hour.
well, I will say one thing. I think that the end credits music slaps. I think the soundtrack to Tears of the Kingdom slaps. I mean,
Hmm.
there are other games with much better music, but I'm just saying I love the orchestral continuation of Zelda music. So I just want to throw that in real quick because I've been
Hmm.
listening to the soundtrack on repeat. I understand a lot of it, it's remixed Breath of the Wild, but I
Hmm.
like the Zonai weird dissonant
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I can say that a lot of my predictions were very wrong, very wrong. Uh, because I thought there might be some sort of like Twilight Realm, Twilight Princess references in here because of all the green stuff, but it just ended up being the Zonai tech, and I was like, yeah, well, close, not really. Time travel though,
Mm,
definitely in there. Not like real time
Mm.
travel, just cutscenes, but um, so all right. Well, I guess in 6 years we'll see the sequel because I think there's a third game coming. But
maybe
anyways,
12 years. We might have to double that.
oh, I know because they got to
Mhm.
build a new landmass for us to explore. They can't do this again. Uh, anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening. Remember, Boss Rush Book Club, you can get 1 month early on Patreon for just $1, as well as a bunch of extra goodies over there. Stephanie, Pat, thank you for your time as always on this Boss Rush video game book club. Next month, Final Fantasy. The following month, TBD, maybe something that you guys vote on. So we'll figure that out. But make sure you play Final Fantasy for next month, everybody. Uh, Thank you for
We love you.
watching. Great. Do whatever. Subscribe to the
Mhm.
channel. And we will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Secret Stone.
Secret Stones. If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/BossRushMedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support. The Boss Rush Podcast is a product of Boss Rush Media, LLC, and is recorded from our headquarters in Akron, Ohio. This show is produced, written, and directed by me, Corey Dierig. My co-hosts are Stephanie Klimov, LaRon Dawkins, and Edward Varnell. You can find Stephanie at Klimov_author on Twitter and Instagram, as well as on the EXPcast. You can find LaRon at Exodus803 on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube, and also on Crossroads, the video game podcast. You can find Edward at ThatRetroCode on Twitter and Instagram, as well as hosting Nintendo Power Block. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at IamCoreyInHD, and find me hosting Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast, and co-hosting Nintendo Power Block. Find the Boss Rush Podcast on all social media platforms at Boss Rush Podcast. You can also follow Boss Rush Media and Boss Rush Network on all major social media platforms. Join the Boss Rush Network Discord and Facebook groups to interact with other friends and fans. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.